How you doing, everybody? I'm Brian Mirando, and this is the Free For All podcast right here on my new home, the Bootleg Garage. I'm very excited to be back after 5 years. Today, I got a very special guest, Robert Lawson, here to promote his fourth book, Solidarity Forever: The Art and Soul of Little Steven. Robert Lawson is a Canadian author who's written books such as Wheatfield Empire, The Listener's Guide to the Guess Who, Still Competition, Listener's Guide to Cheap Trick, Rasmus Naz, The Listener's Guide to Nazareth, and now to promote his fourth book, Solidarity Forever: The Art and Soul of Little Steven. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Lawson. Hey Robert, welcome to the show. How you doing today, buddy?
Good.
Now the brand new book, Solidarity Forever: The Art and Soul of Little Steven. What made you want to start writing this book about Little Steven and the Disciples of Soul? What was the inspiration behind this whole project?
Well, I've been a lifelong fan. He's kind of my hero. I've done a few other books already, and I was just looking for a new project to do, and it kind of made sense to me to write a book about the guy that I love the most.
That's awesome. Now, the best part about this book is you actually got Little Steven to be a part of this project.
Yes.
And that's very important because I remember years ago I was talking with Joey Mullen from Badfinger, his manager. And he said like around 1997 there was a book written called Without You, The Tragic Story of Badfinger. And he said it was nothing but garbage. He said everything in the book was not accurate. There's about 80% of the stuff of events that never happened. It was not authorized by him. He didn't approve it. He won't even sign copies to fans if he's presented with it, which was the main reason he put out his own book to kind of set the record straight. So it's great when you see a book like this, you actually get the source of the person that you're writing a book about instead of just, speculation or, oh, I heard this story in an interview somewhere or I got this account somewhere. You actually got Little Steven to sit down and actually tell you his story. And it made it probably a lot better, I'm sure, for you to write his story.
Well, to be honest, it works both ways, though, because a lot of these older rock guys, they don't remember a lot of the things that they did.
Yeah.
As much as sometimes the hardcore fans know more about their, especially their careers. I don't know that much about Steven's personal life, and I don't want to. I've got lots and lots of footage of me asking him questions, and he has no idea what the answer is because it's been a long time ago, and they all have that, and I understand that. And a lot of the times, I always say the artist's job is to create the music, to perform it, and that's it. They're not supposed to be writing down, what city was I in when I first did this song, or when I had this guitar, and all those. That's what the music nerds like you and me are for.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because sorry to cut you off there.
Well, I just have it's happened with other guys too. So it's just not 100% accurate to say, well, I'm going to listen to the guy who was there because he'll know more than anybody. A lot of times the guy who was there, he knows the least because he was in the middle of it. He was busy, doing it.
Yes.
Taking notes.
Exactly. Like to them, they're like, it's just a day at the office. Like me or you go to like a regular job or somewhere. You're not going to remember what you did the 13th of whatever day. With us, we sit there and we study this. We watch the footage. We watch the music, oh, that moment there. To them, this is like, I was at that gig in 1987 or I was in that gig in 2019. They're like, it's just a day at the office. You're not really observing. You're just going with emotion. You know what I mean?
I'll give you a good example. When his third album first came out, they did 2 warm-up shows at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park.
Legendary venue.
Yeah. And Bruce joined for the encores at one of the shows, and they filmed parts of both shows for the No More video. And during the day, they did some filming for the No More Parties video. So I asked a couple of questions about those Stone Pony shows to the drummer in the band,
yeah,
the keyboard player in the band, the guitar player in the band, and then Zoe Yannikis, who was kind of the oboe. She would come out for a couple of songs.
Yeah.
And they all told me a couple, neat little things about the Stone Pony shows. Steven has no memory of ever playing the Stone Pony as Little Steven in 1987. Obviously, he's played it, in the Jukes and stuff. But all of these guys gave me little bits of information about those shows. He just says, I have no memory whatsoever about playing it. So that doesn't mean that he didn't do it, because we know for a fact he did. I mean, there's footage out there. So, I try not to be too hard on these guys, especially when they're in this, I mean, he's in his 70s. He's done more in his life than I've ever known. And like you said, like most of us don't remember things of our lives, and our lives weren't as exciting as the things that he's done.
Absolutely. Now, not only did you get little Stephen, you also got members of the Disciples of Soul to join in this project as well. Can you tell us the lineup of who you got to interview with this book?
Oh, geez. A lot. From the original Disciples.
Yes.
Jean Beauvoir, Eddie Mannion, Stan Harrison, Rusty Cloud, Arno Heck, who's not an actual disciple, but he played at the 1982 Rock Palast show in Germany. Of course, Zoe Yannikis. Almost everybody on the first album, except I didn't reach out to Gary Talent, and I don't know why. I was kind of thinking about that recently, that I should have tried to get him, because he's actually the bass player on most of the Mimino. But, Monty Lewis Allison, the percussionist, Richie Rosenberg.
Oh, La Bamba.
La Bamba on trombone, Mark Pender, trumpet. Almost all the guys. I mean, Dino Danelli passed away while I was writing the book, so I missed him. Mike Spengler, who was also a trumpet player.
He passed away, unfortunately, too.
So there's a couple of people like that I couldn't get, but of the people on the album, I got almost everybody. And then you get into the 1984 band, so David Rosenthal, the keyboard player.
Oh, you got David Rosenthal.
Yeah.
Touring right now with Billy Joel, doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, he's been with Billy Joel for a real long
time
now. I think he's actually his musical director, not just keyboard player.
Well, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize you got Rosenthal.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't there for all that long, so I probably only had like 2 questions for him or something, but they're good questions.
Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't get Dino Danelli. Unfortunately, he passed. But that was another question I was going to ask you. Was there anybody for the book that you couldn't get that you wanted to get besides Gary Talent?
One of the current backing vocalists in the Disciples of Soul I couldn't get a hold of, but that's okay. I don't know if there's too many people. Like the ones that meant a lot to me, Jean Beauvoir was a little tough to get. Like that took a while. It also took a while to get Rusty Cloud, the original keyboardist from '82, and he was real important to me. That took about a year to get to. Some of these guys aren't really online that much.
Yeah.
Maybe they're teaching or they're retired or they're not in the public life as much as some of the other guys. So Rusty Cloud was one that I was almost gave up on, and luckily that came through. I got Gary U.S. Bonds kind of near the end of the project. I wasn't even expecting to get him actually, and somebody suggested it, and I thought, oh yeah, geez, maybe I should look into that.
Legendary Gary U.S. Bonds, legend. That's awesome.
But of the current, 2017, 2019 Disciples, I got almost everybody involved in that band. So Mark Ribler, Jack Daly, Sarah Devine, Jessica, of course, Jesse Wagner, Rich, the drummer, the keyboard player. I got Lowell Levenger. Almost everybody.
So you even got the current lineup too. This isn't just classic old school Disciples of Soul. You got the current lineup as well. Oh, that is really cool. I was not really expecting to have that lineup on here. I thought you were just going back to the old, original Disciples of Soul era. I didn't realize you were able to get the current lineup right now.
Yeah, both Mark Ribler took a while. Part of the thing with the current guys is they're still sort of working with Steven now and again. So they want to be very careful. They don't want to necessarily say anything if they're not allowed to, or if they shouldn't. But, once I tell them that I talked to Steven for almost 4 hours, that kind of opens a lot of doors.
I was just about to ask you that. What was that like, sitting down with little Steven and actually interviewing him for this book? And was there anything that you got to learn from him that you didn't know before? As you mentioned before, being a fan and knowing almost everything about them, was there anything that you took away from this book like, wow, I did not know that before?
Well, you're not going to like this, but In his book, he says that when he was doing the Sun City project, he asked two people from the world of hard rock, heavy metal, to participate, and they both turned him down because they thought it would be bad for their careers.
Yes.
So I asked him who those people were, but he swore me to secrecy.
Now, the one thing I really want to ask this is, with this book coming out, you got all the Disciples of Soul, you talk about all the members of the for current lineup throughout the career. What makes this book a little bit different than, of course, Disciple, the documentary that was released, and, of course, the autobiography? What's going to make this book different than those two other projects that he's done?
That's a good question. The answer would be that this is way more of a deep dive into his music career than either of those two things. So in Stephen's book, which, I love, I actually own... I think I own 9 different copies of his book, which I showed him too. I showed him all the copies I have.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, like I have the audio version, and I have the Dutch printing, I've got the Italian printing, I've got one from Sweden, I think. I've got Spanish printing. I've got I think 9 or 10 different versions of it now, including a paperback with all my notes in the margins of where there's mistakes and stuff. I didn't show him that one. So the book goes into a lot of detail about his songs and his musical career that his book couldn't, and that the documentary couldn't. You know, I'm friends with the director of the documentary, Bill Tech, and we talk quite often. He invited me to the premiere of the documentary at the Tribeca Film Festival in Manhattan in June, which was amazing. But, I'll give you an example. When Bill Tech and I were talking a while ago, and he was telling me that in his documentary he has Peter Gabriel, and he has Bono, and, whoever else. And I said, well, I don't have anybody like that, but, I got Rusty Cloud. And Bill Tech said, oh my God, you got Rusty Cloud? Because his documentary is, it's an HBO project. So they want big names. They need big names for a thing like that. That's going to be, get a lot of publicity and go all around the world, and also get a lot of people who maybe hardly know anything about Stephen. They're going to watch this and really learn a lot. So you want to have Eddie Vedder and Bruce and all those big names. For me, I'm digging deep into the music. So, Rusty Cloud and Jean Beauvoir and, Mark Pender and Eddie Mannion, Stan Harrison, huge important person for me to have in there. So my book's almost like, if you see the documentary and you go, wow, I learned a lot, I want to learn more, then you would go to the book. If you read the book first, the documentary, it's neat to see it all, but there's not that much more stuff than is in the book. In the book, well, you probably know, in 1986, Stephen played the big Amnesty International Festival in Giant Stadium.
Yes.
And it was shown on TV, and you can watch it on YouTube. He does 3 songs, and Bob Geldof comes out. So that was in 1986. For years, I've been trying to figure out the names of every person on that stage with Stephen, because it's a whole bunch of people who he did not usually play with.
And he also didn't announce them either.
No, he didn't. Right? There's no time. He tried to say a little bit of kind of political things between the songs, and then he was like, get off the stage. They had a whole day of bands playing, so there's no time for speeches or especially you get 15 people who take half a song to introduce them all. So it took a long time for me to figure out who all those names were, and when I finally did, I started interviewing some of those people. So some of those people, HBO would think, well, that guy's a footnote, that guy's nobody. Why would we talk to just the guy who played percussion during one show? I'm like, yeah, but that was a pretty big show, and I want to talk to that guy. So I like talking to the people that a lot of more the mainstream writers or filmmakers don't talk to. So there's tons of stuff in my book that definitely, even though I love the documentary, seeing it in New York in the theater with all those people was really cool. But there's a lot of stuff in the book that takes it to a whole other level.
And that's what I was really hoping with his autobiography, was to hear about, like you've mentioned before, the songs in the original Disciples. Because every time I see something with Little Steven, even when they air it on TV or they show it, like they just did a thing a couple months ago with 60 Minutes. They took him on tour with Springsteen. They show the footage from like the 84 Voices of America Disciples. They don't bring the original Disciples from 82 with, like you mentioned, Ed Manning and Stan Harrison and, La Bamba and Dino Danelli and John Beauvoir, which to me is like the disciples that got him going. If it wasn't for that album, who knows what his career could have been like. I mean, he got very famous and successful with Voices of America, but to me, that's like what Little Steven was about. Like, he started off with the Jukes, then he branched off with the Jukes and went and made his own career without that album. And I feel that that's a little bit of a thing that's really sidetracked away from him, is they don't really mention that part of his career. And it's really cool that you went and actually brought that to the people.
One thing I was surprised, and I haven't asked Bill about this, although I should when he gets back into town. He hardly interviewed any disciples in the documentary. I mean, Pat Thrall from the '87 Disciples, he's in it, and Zoe Yannikis is in it quite a bit. And then, I was really surprised that Ed Mannion isn't in it, because not only is Eddie still part of the Disciples now, they're touring together in the E Street Band.
Yeah.
Like Eddie's on tour with Steven every night.
And he's also his music director too for that Disciples of Soul. He's actually the music director that's arranging the horns and the whole production. So I mean, that's a very important player you want to have if you're talking about him.
Now that could be an HBO decision though, to just say, well, we want to, more people are going to tune in if we have, Peter Gabriel and whoever. If it's a guy that only New Jersey fans know, maybe it doesn't add that much. But I was still surprised because they did talk to Pat Thrall, and I did too. I mean, Pat Thrall gave me some really a couple of really neat tidbits. But I don't know how you don't talk to Ed Mannion or La Bamba, but that might not have been Bill's decision. That could be an HBO documentary kind of decision. I talked to, here's one for you. I talked to every member of the 1989 Revolution band.
Oh, cool.
Nobody talks to those guys. They showed footage of that band in the documentary, which I was kind of surprised. I think they showed more. I don't think they showed any live footage of the 82-83 band in the documentary. It opens with Voice of America from Rock Plaza '84. Then there are clips of there's the '87 band, and there's a bunch of clips from the '89 band, playing some European festivals and stuff.
Now, the only thing I had a question with the documentary was Eddie Vedder. That was the only thing that kind of got a little bit to me was, and nothing against Eddie Vedder. I'm a big Pearl Jam fan. I like Eddie Vedder. The only thing was when he was talking about discovering, Men Without Women. He mentioned, I heard the album, it was fantastic, and it was one of the best records I ever heard. The only thing was I've never heard him in any interview or anything talk about that record until they make a movie about it. Then it was the greatest thing ever. I know he went and he covered, I Am a Patriot, but I felt that he kind of overplayed it a little bit in the documentary. That was just my opinion. I just found that to be a little interesting. Because the hundreds of interviews he's done, he talks about the Clash, he talks about the Stones, the Beatles influence, the punk rock movie. Never one time mentioned Little Steven, but now you're in a movie, and it's, it was the great, I don't know if that was an HBO decision as well, or that's his own personal opinion.
It could be. I mean, I watch a lot of music documentaries, and I enjoy watching, if I watch a music documentary, and I really love the film, and it's about a band that I don't like, then it's a good film.
Yeah.
If they can tell a story and make it really interesting, that's just good filmmaking. So it shouldn't have to. So I know what you're saying, and I see that a lot in music documentaries. One thing that turns me off with music documentaries a lot, and it'll make me stop watching it, is it's just a lot of generic stuff that they're saying.
Yes.
So one line that they say in all these documentaries is, and it could be any artist. Well, when you hear REO Speedwagon, you just know it's REO Speedwagon.
Yes.
They say that in well, when you hear Megadeth, you just know that's Megadeth. What does that even mean?
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm liking about your book. It's it's going more farther than what you'd see in a doc or in an autobiography, because I've seen even with Motley Crue, for example. They put out The Dirt a couple years ago, which was a good film, but I really didn't learn anything from The Dirt. You know, like it was like everything that you've seen in The Dirt was the same thing that was in the book, and the same thing you've heard 500 times reproduced. Every documentary or special they put out, it's the same thing over and over again. It's like nothing new. You know, that's what I'm liking, like with stories like what you're doing, is it takes it to another level than like the basic Hollywood, generic stuff. Like even like with Disciple, I found it was kind of like the autobiography, but just in a film form with a bunch of celebrity guests. Which, I mean, nothing against the book and nothing against the documentary. Both fantastic projects. Especially being a diehard fan like me and you are. I want to take as much as I can from this in the 2.5 hours I'm giving you.
Yeah. A lot of people have asked me, like, if I learned any from the documentary, and my answer is no. But the documentary is not made for me. The documentary is made for the person who maybe only knows him from Sopranos and doesn't know his own music. Like, I can tell you, when we were in Manhattan watching the premiere of the documentary, and they were showing, some of his famous kind of like funny scenes from Sopranos, right? So he's doing the Al Pacino impersonation, and then the poker scene with the thing about the cheese.
Yes.
At his feet. When they showed those scenes in this theater in Manhattan, people were laughing like crazy. And I was looking around thinking, I don't think these people watch Sopranos. I think these people were seeing that for the first time. It could be people who only know Bruce Springsteen music.
Yes.
And so, like, I always think there are people out there, believe it or not, who don't know that the guy in Sopranos is in the E Street Band. And someone told me that a while ago, and I thought, there's no way, especially at this point, because Sopranos has been over for so long, and Steven's been back in the E Street Band for so long. There are people who don't know that. So a lot of mainstream, even non-rock and roll people might be watching this documentary to learn about the other, or they didn't know that he did solo music or something,
And that's one thing I try to tell people all the time. You guys don't realize how important he was, how many bands he produced and discovered, and everything he's done. To me, he's like one of the greatest figures in rock and roll. He's like one of the unsung heroes. Everything that he's done, from Sun City to producing the Archangels, Lone Justice, doing the stuff with Springsteen, getting Gary U.S. Bond's career back together, working with Michael Monroe when he did Demolition 23, finding Wicked Cool Records, Darling Love's last record, getting the Jukes together. There would be no Southside Johnny without that. And that's what I feel that people should know more about him than him just playing some, like he said on stage, some wannabe tough guy in a TV show. He's just an amazing artist all around. He's done so many things. I mean, me and you could sit here for 3 hours talking about the amazing stuff that he's done for other artists and what he's been involved in. Now, not only did you get the band involved and Little Steven involved, you also got fans involved in this book as well, to donate pictures and memorabilia and stuff.
Yeah, well, I try to do that with all my books, just because that's where a lot of the real stories kind of lie. Like I said, the people who've been following him or writing about him or just obsessing over him, whoever it is, they often know more information. They have cooler things, or they just have things that the artist doesn't know about. When I was talking with Steven, I was showing him all kinds of stuff that he didn't recognize, like imports, and I got a Mexican copy of the Sun City album where it's a blue color. Like every Sun City album is black with the red sun in it.
Yeah, I got that copy, the black copy, yeah.
This one's a light blue. He'd never seen it before. I reached out to some people who had either like live photos or just asking what people have in their collections. In some cases, I just needed information from, if there's not too many Little Steven items that I don't have. I'll say that. Like, I own every album, multiple copies on vinyl, cassette, CD, everything. But there's a few out there I don't have, so I would reach out to someone just to like confirm a product number or the running time of a remix or something. So I never want my books to come out that some hardcore fan out there is going to say, oh, why did they talk to me? Because I could have helped solve that problem. If there's some kind of a question that I wasn't able to figure out, I never want the book to come out and then all of a sudden somebody comes out of the woodwork and says, oh, why didn't you ask me? So when I'm writing a book like this, I fan out and I like enlist a whole team of people to go, who's seen him the most? Who's, recorded live shows? Who are the other experts out there? Who also, Steven as a solo artist has never come to Canada all that often. So I try to enlist all kinds of people all around the world who, if they have any little tidbit that might make the book a little bit better, you're on my team.
Oh, that is so awesome. Because not too many people would do that. They usually stick with their own little. They have they have an idea, they set to that idea, and they stick to that idea. Where I like you branch out. Anybody that has anything, please help out, and including me, which I'm very proud of being able to be a part of this book as well. And that's how we actually got to know each other, was just you making the book. And I appreciate that. It means a lot that you actually would take my ticket stub and actually put it on the back of the book and make me a part of this as well. The fans too. There's so many fans out there, and it means so much to us to be involved and be a part of something like this. It means a lot to people. Not just being able to sit on the sidelines and be a fan and buy the tickets and the albums and watch them on TV, but to be a part of something that's really cool.
Yeah, and I cast a wide net for that reason. I want as many people involved as possible. I want fellow experts, and some people don't come through, and that's okay. With every project, there's someone out there who has something super rare, and I just can't get them to find it. Or like every 3 weeks I send another message like, hey, did you ever, find that backstage pass? Oh, geez, I forgot. Yeah, I'll get it tonight for sure. Another 3 weeks go by.
Exactly.
And after a while, you just can't do it. But I keep trying, and I try to get as many people. Like, I know a lot about Little Steven, obviously, but you never know. Mike Saunders in London, England, he's like the world's authority on Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. He knows more about the Jukes than almost anybody. So I had him proofread 2 of my chapters that deal with the Jukes. After a lot of people had already proofread them, I thought, okay, if this guy's the #1 Jukes expert in the world, let's see what he has to say. So, I try to bring as many people on board as possible, because the end result is to have the final book be the best it can be. If you introduce ego into it, I know everything. I'm not going to learn anything from this Brian guy, or I'm not going to, then you're self-defeating. So better to say, let's all do this together. Let's all make it the best, so that it's not just that I'm proud of it. When it comes out, anyone who contributed to it, they're kind of proud of it too.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's a great gift to be a part of this. It's like, it's kind of like being part of your own little club. A lot of people, like I mentioned before, not everybody's a big Little Steven fan, but there are a lot of big Little Steven fans. He sells shows out all over the world. So, that's the thing, to be even be a little bit of a part of this, or even give a little bit of information. It makes it a lot better than just some guy sitting there writing a book out, like, oh, here's your book, like they do with the Rolling Stones or like Led Zeppelin. There's 60, 70 different Led Zeppelin books out there, 60, 70 different Rolling Stones book, and it's just written by some like historian that just thinks they know everything about the Stones, and they really don't go far past than maybe 1 or 2 people, or, oh, I met Mick one time, or I was on that one tour, and I'm just going to go on that one source. When you're going to people all over the world, they might have saw something or know something that we never even knew that happened at a show even.
Yeah, sure. A big help to me was I'm real good friends with Steven's guitar tech. So, like when the E Street Band is touring in Italy, and like they've been touring for like all summer, this guy's sending me like close-up photos of Steven's guitars from backstage, and I'm asking him questions about which guitar was used on the Men Without Women album, and when did he switch to the guitars in '84, and all that kind of stuff. And that's only for like real music and guitar nerds that have that kind of information. And he's another guy. He's not in the documentary, and I got so much great information from him, because he was a roadie in the 82, 83, 84, 87 band, and now he's back. But I also talked to a guy, I mentioned the name to Steven. He had no idea who it was. It's a guy, he was, in 82, 83, they had a separate roadie for drums and percussion. Because the band was so big, they had a whole crew. So a different guy who did the sound checks and stuff, just for drums and percussion. Steven didn't even remember the guy's name. I interviewed that guy for like half an hour or something.
Well, you mentioned his guitar roadie. I saw him in Buffalo, 2019 Summer Solstice Tour, because he came on stage with the guitar. He has still the original Disciples of Soul jacket. And I took note to it. Not too many people took note to it, but I took note to it. He's got the original Disciples of Soul leather still. He still wears it to this day. I was shocked to see it. I was like, I thought I was seeing things. I'm like, is that the, oh my God, it is.
Yeah. Well, the drum and percussion roadie, he still has his jacket too. He sent me a photo of it, but he doesn't play professionally anymore, so he doesn't wear it on stage anymore.
Now, I wanted to ask, is Pee Wee Weber still alive?
I couldn't get a hold of Pee Wee Weber. That was another one. I mentioned that name to Steven, and Steven went, wow, Pee Wee Weber. I haven't thought of him in years, man.
Well, because he wasn't on the record. He was just a touring guy in the 82 tour. My dad saw him in 82. He was the fill-in keyboardist.
He was in 83.
82, 83, yeah. He was the fill-in, because I think the Disciples, they switched up some of the members switched up, because I think they were on tour with, Darling Love, I believe, at the time?
Well, in Rusty Cloud's case, he was the keyboard player in 82, and he left to join the Jukes.
Okay. So they kind of went off and did their own projects a little bit, too.
Horns were splitting their time between Diana Ross.
Oh, Diana Ross. Not Darling Love, Diana Ross.
They were going back and forth between the Jukes and Diana Ross.
Yeah.
And then they had to make a decision. Most of them stayed with Steven, and only Mike Spengler, the trumpet player, he decided to stay with Diana Ross. But there's some cool photos out there if you really look for them from 1981, 82. Diana Ross playing these huge stadiums, and it's the Miami Horns behind her. And I'd never seen that before because I'd never gone looking for it. But it's pretty cool to see Eddie Mannion, Richie Rosenberg, and Mark Pender playing disco with Diana Ross.
Oh, that is cool. Now, real quick, I mentioned this on my social media page earlier. You mentioned Stan Harrison. Well, I got a big announcement. Yeah. I actually have been in contact with Stan Harrison, and he has agreed to come on this show and do an interview with me.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So, we haven't had a date officiated yet, but we're in contact right now. So anybody listening, we will try to get Stan Harrison on the show pretty soon. And there's so much I want to talk to him about. Not just the Disciples and not just the Jukes, but just his career in general. It's amazing, the stuff that guy's done. So everybody stay tuned for that. Now, before you get going, before we wrap this interview up, and I really want to thank you for being here, I got a group of questions here. I call this the hot seat. It's just a list of generic questions just to get to know you a little bit better. So if you don't mind answering a couple questions.
Let's go.
Okay, first question. The Stones or the Beatles?
Stones.
Why?
I'm just a Stones guy. Although I will say, I haven't really listened to the Stones since about 82, 83 or something. I love all the 60s stuff, love the 70s stuff, early 80s, and then after that, I'm kind of out. I don't listen to anything they've done since then.
Well, that's just usually a generic built-in question I ask, and that's why I always give somebody an answer to explain why, because it's always that question. I always love that. Are you a Stones fan or a Beatles fan? You got to be one. You can't be in the middle.
Right.
That's what I always say. All right. Now, if you weren't able to do the Little Steven book, who would have been your second choice to do a book on?
That's pretty interesting. Well, this is my fourth book, so I don't know if there's anything else that could have been my fourth book. There's certain parameters that they have to meet. It has to be somebody that there's already not a lot of books about. Like you're saying, there's a million books about a lot of classic rock bands. What are you going to add to that? So unless I had something really unique to offer, I'm not going to write a book about a band that already has, I can't believe there's over 20 or 25 books about AC/DC who, the career isn't that interesting. A lot of great music, and I love the early stuff. I'm a huge Bon Scott guy, but there's not really much of a story in there, especially after Bon died. They're a band, they put out records, and they tour. I don't know how much you can say about that. So with any of my books, so with Steven, there's only been the one, his autobiography, and that has to talk about meeting Maureen. I talked to Maureen for my book. He talks about a lot of things about his life, so I thought, well, this could fill a gap. If the book's not going to fill a gap, then there's no point in doing it. So, a book about Hendrix or something, I love Hendrix. I'm a big Hendrix guy. There's a lot of Hendrix books, what could I add to that? So I don't really know. If I didn't do the Steven book, I don't know if I would have done a fourth book.
All right.
Good question. I should think about that a little bit more. Now you got me thinking. You got me thinking.
All right. The best autobiography you have ever read?
I used to read a lot of music autobiographies. I don't read quite as much anymore. Occasionally I still do. There's a group from Scotland called the Waterboys. And they had a little bit of a heyday in the 80s. They're still around. But the lead guy of the Waterboys, Mike Scott, he wrote an autobiography, and it's incredible because you can tell his use of language, the way he describes things. He's a very poetic kind of person. That's a book I found myself getting to the bottom of each page and almost having to start at the top again just to really savor the language. A lot of rock books, I hate to burst any bubbles out there, aren't written by the guys at all. When you see a book that says, I don't know, written by Mick Mars and somebody else, that guy wrote the book. It just means he sat down for like 20 interviews with Mick Mars, and then they just typed it all up as if the guy actually wrote it. Bruce Springsteen really did write his book. But a lot of these guys, they just get interviewed by somebody else, and then that guy puts it into shape and stuff like that. So the Mike Scott autobiography is very, very good. The Elvis Costello autobiography is also very good. He's got a great memory for a lot of things. I like Bob Dylan's autobiography. The Bruce one's good. There's a couple mistakes when it comes to Stephen in it. But there's a few mistakes in Stephen's book too, which I sent some suggested corrections for the paperback edition. They didn't use them.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned with the ghostwriter thing, because I wanted to mention that before, is that, it really shocks me, as you mentioned before, talking to Stephen, you forget, when you read, like, Keith Richards' book, when you're reading the book, it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. But as you sit back and after you're done reading it and you think about it, it's like, the guy did that much partying, has done that much stuff in his career, and you remember something that him and Mick talked about back in 1968. Like, it's like, shouldn't it be more like, I think Mick Jagger said, or I might assume Mick Jagger says, like, no, Mick Jagger said such and such, such and such, and such and such. And when you find out about a ghostwriter, too, it really kind of disappoints you.
Yeah, the ghostwriter thing can kind of bug me a bit. But I will say about the memories is that some of these guys surprise you. And just like us, normal people in society, some of us have really great memories, and some people have really crappy memories. I wrote a book about the Guess Who. And Burton Cummings, the lead singer, he did a lot of partying in the 70s and 80s, a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking. Original guitar player Randy Bachman, he likes to brag. He never did any drugs. He never drank. He never ran around with groupies. He never did any of that stuff. Guess which one has a way better memory? The drinking and drugs guy.
Oh, yeah.
Randy Bachman can't remember anything, so he just makes shit up. Burton has an amazing memory for his history, even though he partied so much and all that kind of stuff. So some of these guys might surprise you.
All right, favorite concert moment and the best concert you've ever attended?
Well, I was talking about this the other day with my wife. Last year, I flew to Red Bank, New Jersey, because Little Steven was playing a show again with the Disciples, and that was one of the greatest concerts of my life. And I've seen a lot of shows, I'm a little bit older, and but seeing that was incredible. I didn't know if the Disciples would ever play again, because they were in the middle of an E Street Band tour, and the tour had already been kind of postponed for a while because of the pandemic, and then different members were getting COVID, so Steven missed a few dates, Nils J. Clemens missed a few dates, so it was really kind of shaky. And then all of a sudden, Steven's doing 2 shows in Red Bank, New Jersey, so I flew down to that, and for being a hardcore Little Steven fan, I'm sitting there, I'm second row, right in front of his microphone, and the curtains are there, and there's this drum beat, and the curtains open, and these sirens start going, and I'm not really paying that much attention, and I realize they're playing Rock and Roll Rebel.
Oh.
Which had never been played since 1983. I got goosebumps now just talking about it. So when I realized, not only are they playing Rock and Roll Rebel, they're opening with it. Incredible. Like, I don't know if other people in the audience knew how incredible that was. And then at another point of the show, so it's a great show. He did songs from every album. It wasn't just kind of like the greatest hits. They were doing weird shit. And then in the middle of the show, he says, oh, this is a song, and it's about a post-apocalyptic world, and the future is that, it's called St. Francis.
He hasn't done that one since I forgot him the last time he did that song.
Ever. It was the debut.
It was the debut of it? Could have sworn I saw somebody did that one time. I could have sworn he did that one.
Because he didn't tour for Born Again Savage. In 2017, when he got the Disciples together again, they were doing Salvation. off that album. And in 2019, they're doing Camouflage of Righteousness.
Yeah.
From that album.
Great song, too. Another great song from that record.
Yeah, so they're doing St. Francis for the first time ever, except on the album. Of course, it's this hard rock guitar thing, just with a power trio. Here, it's with horns, and the girls are singing, and the percussion. One of the greatest moments of my life. Like, it's amazing. And I talked to him about that. Like, how are you pulling out these rare... He also did a song that had never been heard ever, and it's not on any album, called I Could Have Been a Politician.
Oh, okay.
I was like, what the hell is this? A song I've never even heard of before? And he's playing it. So that was one of the greatest concerts of my life.
Now you talk about that show. That is actually the show you took the photo for the book cover. Am I correct?
My friend Ken Lesnick, who was with me, yes, he took that photo. So that photo is literally from exactly that show, and I'm standing right next to the guy who took the photo. Yes, and that's also the show that after the concert we were backstage with Steven. That's when I pitched the project to him, because I already had a bunch of band members involved, and I hadn't talked to him about it specifically yet. So that's when I pitched it to him, and right away he said, "Yeah, I'm in. What do you need from me?"
Oh, that's really cool. You went backstage and actually talked to him personally. Oh, that is really cool. I'm glad you shared that story with me. That is awesome.
Picture of us backstage from it.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, that show was supposed to be recorded. It was 2 nights at the Red Banks, and I think they were recording those 2 shows. I'm not sure they filmed the first one or they filmed the second one or both shows. I'm not sure how it went about. It was supposed to be recorded for an upcoming concert DVD.
Oh, the Red Bank?
Yeah, the Red Bank.
Yeah,
that was supposed to be recorded for the upcoming DVD. I think it got put off because of the documentary or something, but they were supposed to be filming. That was the purpose for those shows. It was done in between the Springsteen tour to film a concert DVD before that show. I haven't really heard anything about it yet, though, too. I don't know.
Well, you're right. The documentary has kind of pushed it back a little bit because they want to focus on that.
Yeah.
Those shows at the end of the documentary.
Yes. Yes.
You see me for a second in the second row. But, yeah, it's all been filmed. The guy who directed that footage is also a friend of mine now, and he directed the previous 2 Little Steven Live Blu-rays. And they're just kind of waiting it out. They want the HBO documentary to go through the whole cycle.
Oh, okay.
It just premiered in the UK like 2 weeks ago. So they're kind of letting it, they want to get it out to as many people as possible. And then hopefully the Red Bank footage will come out. But I can tell you, one of the bonus things that they've worked on is a mini 20 to 25 minute documentary just about the song St. Francis.
Oh, really?
So it's going to be about how it shows Steven rearranging it backstage and getting the new horn parts and really working it out in sound check, and then the final way that they performed it at the show. So that might be a bonus feature on the Red Bank Blu-ray.
Oh, that is awesome. I didn't hear about that. Now,
I don't think that's public knowledge.
Oh, I didn't hear about that at all. No. Now, I just want to ask, this isn't on the question sheet here, but I want to ask this. Have you got any information on the Men Without Women movie? I remember I heard somebody mention on Twitter, it was somebody associated with Steven, and he said that they were thinking of re-releasing that movie finally, Men Without Women, the original movie did back in, I think, 82, 83. That was never really released. It was released, I think, in like a theater somewhere in Jersey, but it was never actually officially released for the public. It was only released in a certain number of markets.
Yeah, it played in L.A., actually, and it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in France. And then they were going to do some reshoots or some re-edits or something. And then, the stories kind of vary. Sometimes Steven says they ran out of money. Sometimes
in the book it said he ran out of money, never was finished, then it was released, so...
it lost interest by the time the horns were gone, and he sort of moved on. So, yeah, they've talked about it. I think there's a long list of things that Steven wants to do. And, he wants to redo a whole box set just for the Sun City album.
Oh, does he?
He told me that, because he says they have it. One of the things about Sun City, and I asked him about this, if you watch, the We Are the World documentary or any of those kind of big projects like that, they have a guy come in and he sings one line, and then he's out.
Yeah.
Right? Billy Joel comes in, sings one line, he's out. Stevie Wonder, one line, he's out. For Sun City, they didn't do it that way. they would have people sing a whole verse, or even 2 or 3 verses, and then pick whichever line was the best. So that means you could make alternate versions of the Sun City song with all different people singing different lines. Like there's a version out there where like Bruce sings, maybe the whole song even, and then they just pick the one line. And there's a version where, Bono sings the whole song, and Bob Dylan, all these people, they all did different versions of whole verses or even the whole song. So there's multi-tracks out there that Arthur Baker has, and I interviewed him a lot for the book too. So they have all this stuff. So you can imagine that there's just like a whole version of just Stephen's guitar parts. Like I would love to hear, the song Sun City with everyone singing a different line than how they did it on the album. And they could do that. It would take time, and I don't know if there's a market for it, but they could do that. So there's a lot of things like that he wants to do. The Man Without Women movie is part of it. I do talk about the movie a lot in the book. The Men Without Women chapter in my book might be the longest chapter because there's so much to cover.
Oh, yeah.
I go into a lot of detail about the movie, and I explain exactly what the story is and what scenes there are, what footage is from different venues and stuff like that. It is a very in-depth look at the movie, which, of course, like you said, was never really officially released to the public. So at least reading about it in the book, a lot of people will get a pretty good idea of what the movie's really like.
So, I mean, they did show bits and pieces of it throughout in the documentary, but they didn't show they showed just a clip here and a clip there, which I thought was really cool because I never even saw anything of it. And to find out that some of the clips from the movie were actually in the music video from Forever was really cool too. To find that out too, I thought that was just filmed just for the video, and to realize that was actually from the movie, that was really cool to find out.
Yeah, Forever is almost all taken from the movie. And also, if you look in your original Men Without Women, the lyric sheet, all those pictures that are on the lyric sheet, those are also all from the movie. Stephen and Maureen riding their bikes around the fountain in Central Park. There's a really funny scene in the movie where they're having dinner at Stephen's grandmother's house.
Mm-hmm.
So Nana Lento. So it's an authentic Italian dinner. The whole scene is in Italian with English subtitles.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah, it's like a scene out of Goodfellas or something. It's really, yeah.
All right, next question. Autobiography or documentary?
I'm a big fan of both. Like I said, I like music documentaries a lot, and I really like watching one. There's a great one about the band Journey, and I don't listen to Journey. I've never owned a Journey album or anything. There's a great documentary about their new lead singer, how they found him on YouTube singing Journey songs, and they bring him over from the Philippines. Now he's this huge star. He's playing these huge venues, but he's kind of sad because he misses his parents and stuff. It's a great story. Like, you don't have to be into Journey music at all to like it. So that's an example of a music documentary that I really love. Another great one is Anvil, the story of Anvil.
Oh, I've seen that.
They're, really entertaining, funny. I've never owned an Anvil album. Never really, I know a little bit about them just because I lived through that era. But, there's some great music documentaries out there. To me, the worst one would just be one that's kind of boring or doesn't make you even, care about the subject. When you watch the Anvil documentary, you care about these guys because they just keep swinging and losing. But, it's an entertaining story.
I actually got to see Anvil open for Alice Cooper. They were pretty good live. They put a good, decent show on. It's just that they just didn't get the lucky break that they needed.
That's right, yeah.
All right. Your favorite classic film?
I'm a big classic movie guy. My film sort of era is from the 30s up to probably 1978 or something. I'm sure I'm going to be watching an old 70s movie tonight. I watch one almost every night. I'm really big into all the old Universal monster movies. I'm also a big Hammer, all the British horror stuff, independent American horror like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that's a real big one for me. To me, that's so almost any of that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm big, Godfather and all that kind of stuff as well. But I would say the Universal Monster stuff, all the original King Kong movies I'm into. I could do a movie book. That is a possibility because that would make it different than always writing about music all the time.
Well, that would be pretty cool.
Some people have suggested that over the years. I've thought about it. That might be kind of cool.
That'd be interesting. That'd be pretty cool. I think it'd be a great project to be a part of. All right. What advice would you give to somebody who's inspiring to be a writer?
Talked with a lot of people about this kind of thing, and a lot of people have asked me over the years, like, where do you find the time, and how do you stay motivated? And to me, that's the biggest issue, or that seems to be the biggest issue that other people have. And you just have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it. When I first started writing books, or after a couple of books, I think I've had almost like 10 different people either have phone calls or Zoom calls or, go out for dinner and drinks and really want as much information because they're going to write a book. And they really pick my brains over this whole thing. And out of all those people, I think only one guy actually published a book. So people give up real easy, but you got to stay focused. You got to keep your eye on the prize. And you also, I find it real helpful to work on it every day, even a little bit, so you never lose it. Like this book is done, and I'm still working on it. All of these blue little Post-its are little things that I want to look into just to make sure that it's the best it can be. So staying focused and time management is really important. If you think, I won't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow.
Never happens. Tomorrow never comes.
You might not make it. So I encourage people. I think more people should do this kind of thing. It's a lot of fun, and it is very rewarding when your final product comes out and it's in the hands of the fans. But yeah, I've talked to so many people over the years they're so focused on doing a book about whatever group or whatever artist, and I'm still waiting years later. Even during the pandemic, I was telling people then, like, you're sitting at home right now, right? Like everyone, you're not going to work anymore. Spending time with friends and family. Now is the time to get started because you could literally devote like 8 hours a day to it. Make this your job and just keep plugging away at it. But it's hard. The time management thing is really difficult for a lot of people.
Well, that's what I tell people all the time, even doing like interviews like this. I do this just because I love doing interviews and I love meeting people. And like I told people before, when I started doing the podcast again, I talked to you and you wanted to bring me on the show and talk about the book. That actually inspired me to go out and contact Stan Harrison and contact, Ivan from Hollywood Apocalypse. But it's like it starts the ball rolling. And even if you're not going to make a chunk of money, you're not going to be living in a mansion or something like that. Do what you love to do and just go out and do it just to say you did it. At the end of the day, you have a product or a piece of art or a piece of music that you can show and say, this is what I created, and I'm proud of this. Something that you're going to leave behind is somebody, and even like with your book coming out, fans get to be exposed to, like we talked about before, Little Steven. And you get somebody who might love Little Steven. This book is amazing. This is the best book I've ever read in my life. I'm so glad this person took the time to make this.
Right.
So I tell people, just go out and do it and don't care. Just go out and do your best and do what makes you happy.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The difference between someone who writes books and someone who doesn't is just that. One guy's doing it and one guy isn't, And that was the thing with me, like years ago, I thought, there's a friend of mine up here who's written a lot of books about hard rock and heavy metal named Martin Popoff. And I read a lot of his books. And I thought, wow, how is he writing these books and I'm not? And then I realized, oh yeah, he's doing it. That's the only difference.
All our heroes started the same way. Bruce Springsteen started out in his bedroom writing songs. Now he's playing Giant Stadium every year. I mean, like, who knows what could happen? Anything could possibly happen. Like Keith Richards says the best, just play some music and hopefully you can make some money at the end of the day.
I think it's just a good kind of life maybe lesson that there's value in just putting an effort in. Just try,
Give it a shot.
I know a lot. I have a friend up here, and he's a really good guy, and he knows more about Ace Frehley than anyone I've ever met. And he's been talking to me for years about an Ace Frehley book. I'm like, dude, please just do it. He's like, oh, I'm not quite ready to start yet. I'm like, oh, come on, man, just do it. It'll be so good. And that's his journey. I don't judge him for it, but I know that he'll feel real happy if he actually completes it. And I hope one day he will. So yeah, just put in a little effort and bringing people together, bring in some fellow fans, some fellow friends, everyone to work on something. It's a great kind of community thing. People will be, like I said, like your name is in the book as a contributor. You're next to like Jean Beauvoir and people like that. Like that's a cool thing.
I've been telling people that thing. I'm in a book. I'm credited for a book. I never thought in a million years I'd ever be in a history book. Not trying to quote Little Steven in a history book, remembering my name, but I remember when I found out I was going to get credit, that lyric popped into my mind. I'm like, I did it. It's awesome. Like, I'm so happy to be a part of this, and that's why I wanted you on the show, because it meant so much just to even give a ticket stub for a book that's going to be published and it's going to be bought by people. That's awesome to me.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's very cool.
Now, this next question is probably going to be an unpopular question. I'm going to put you on the spot with this one. The Disciples of Soul or the Jukes? Now, you got to be careful because the Jukes and the Disciples are the same group of guys. Which way are you going to go here?
What kind of, except
the same band, same guys. Most of them.
Like over 200 people in them by now. I love the first three Jukes albums a lot, but to me, especially the 82 Disciples are, to me, that's like the number one band. In 83, it changed a little bit. Still very good. Still very, very good. But the 1982 Disciples are right up there. Although that 2017, 2019 band that he has, they're pretty shit hot too. Because that's the first time he's got female backing singers, and the horns and the percussion back, and that's pretty good too. I think the thing that you can say about both the Jukes and the Disciples is that Steven can put together a pretty hot band.
Oh yes, when it comes to like the music, composing music, he's the best. Like, I mean, there's stuff that he did out there. I find out later on he did. It's like, wow, he did that. And even like with the Jukes and the Miami Horns, anytime on TV I see somebody that's got a horn section, I'm always looking to see if there's a Juke in that bunch. And it's really crazy when you actually see a Juke that's like there. I'm like, is they there? Oh my God, that's La Bamba. Oh my God, that's Ed Manning. Mark Pender? Like, it's crazy the amount of experience and where these guys went on to go and form after the Jukes and after the Disciples and what they went on to do in their career, which I'm really hoping to talk to when I get Stan Harrison on the show, talk about that, because he went on to play with some major players.
Yeah, just the last couple of years, him and Mark Pender been playing horns with a group called They Might Be Giants.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Which is why they weren't in the Disciples. But also, in the 80s, there used to be kind of a blues rock guy named Robert Cray, who was pretty popular. Go watch some of his old videos. Ed Mannion's a sax player.
Yeah, my dad actually saw Sauce Johnny open for Robert Cray.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, he actually got to see Robert Cray with Sauce Johnny open at 86, 87, somewhere around there.
Right, sounds about right.
Yeah, great. Now, before we get going, there's one more question I got to ask you. There was a session done by Little Steven called the Lost Boys session. In the book, he talks about this session, but he never officially revealed who was a part of the session. He talks about recording a group of these songs. Some of these songs were actually released online. You could go find them right now. First of all, did he get into those sessions with you? And did he release the names of who played on those sessions?
Yes, we talked about the Lost Boys sessions quite a bit, and I interviewed a few of the people involved in those sessions.
Oh, you did? Who are they?
Well, you're going to have to read the book to find out.
Oh, come on. You're going to make me wait even longer. I was hoping to ask you that question. I was like, I'm finally going to get to find out who it is. Because those sessions are amazing. Affection, amazing song. I'll Never Be Your Friend, an amazing song. I forgot the other song. It was a blues song. It was Snakeskin Blues or Snakeskin something. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. There were 3 songs I know for a fact off that. There was another song, too.
There's a song called Goodbye.
That was another one.
That he actually played in London when he first got the Disciples back together again for that blues festival in 2016. He actually played the song Goodbye off the Lost Boys, which is really weird.
Oh, did he?
Never played it again, yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was Goodbye, Affection, which I think actually was released in The Sopranos, Affection. I think it was a scene they were in the strip club. I think you could hear it over in the background.
There's also a song called Nobody Loves and Leaves Behind, or Nobody Loves and Lives or something.
Yeah.
That's the name. Yeah, there's a few Lost Boys songs that have sort of snuck out there, and hopefully we'll hear some more. That's another thing on his list of things that he really wants to complete and put out. whether he finds the time for it, I don't know.
Yeah, especially with producers and everything else. I think he just sold his catalog off too. He just sold his catalog. He sold the rights to his publishing too. So when it comes to whoever owns the publishing, and they get around to doing it too.
Yeah.
'Cause I remember even with Southside Johnny, they said they were going through that big lawsuit with Sony, and I was talking to one of his guys, and he said too. He says Southside Johnny was getting annoyed because you guys have nothing to do with my music. You're not releasing my music. Let me buy my music back. And this was way before that whole law came into effect of being able to buy your rights back and buying your publishing back. Like, release it to us or sell it to us. You're not doing anything with it. Give it to me. I'll do something with it next week. So that's what, unfortunately, too, the business part of it does play a big, big part in what gets released and what gets pushed off to the side.
Yeah, there's a Cheap Trick's Robin Zander recorded a solo album a few years ago, and it's locked up tight. The record company who owns it, they won't put it out, and there's always been a lot of questions about it. People wonder, did it come out? Will it come out? Whatever. It happens, and
that's unfortunately the way a cookie crumbles. Sometimes they put a bigger projects above some other projects.
Yeah.
But anyway, everybody go check out Robert Lawson's book, Solidarity Forever, Art and Soul of Little Steven. Now, where can people find this book? And is there an official release date yet?
I don't have an official release date. We have one more round of proofreading revisions that's going to happen this month. And then after that, it'll get fast-tracked publication. So I'm hoping end of September. I don't know for sure. Once I do know, I'll be posting it on all my social media like crazy to let everybody know. But it'll be on all Amazon sites anywhere in the world where you live. You can get it in France and Germany and Japan, and they'll have it on all Amazon sites. Barnes & Nobles in the States, it will be in their database. Whether they choose to carry it or not, that's up to each individual store manager. But you could definitely order it from Barnes & Nobles in the States if you don't like ordering from Amazon or anything like that. I'll be selling signed copies myself, but sometimes the shipping on that gets a little much, especially for people in the States. But everywhere. There's also a big chain up here in Canada called Indigo Books, and it'll be part of their database as well. So anyone who wants this book, it will not be hard to find.
So there's not going to be a limited run. It's not going to be one of those, there's only going to be 2,000 copies available to the public or anything like that.
Not really. I mean, the original print run will probably be a couple of thousand, but if it does well, yeah, we'll keep making more.
All right.
I want as many people as possible to have this book. There's no way I'm going to be happy if someone says, oh, I didn't get a chance to get one. We'll make sure you get one.
Awesome. And also, I will be posting it as well and promoting the book as well on my page too. So everybody go out there and check it out. Well, I want to thank Robert Lawson for being here. And good luck with the book. Can't wait to read it.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon.
All right. Have a good one. All right, everyone. That's it for this week. I want to thank Robert Lawson for stopping by. Everybody go out and check out his new book, Solidarity Forever, The Heart and Soul of Little Steven. And make sure to tune in next week as I have Ivan from Hollywood Apocalypse. Until then, do good to others like you do yourself. Peace out.